Those are critical. So I'm going to hand it right on over. I'm not sure, Josh, Tamika, which one of you is going first, but you're both, everyone's waiting with bated breath for the two of you.
Yeah, so that's actually, Tamika, would you like to go first or would you like me to?
Oh, that's fine. You can go first, Josh.
Okay, awesome. So good morning, everyone. My name's Josh Coons. I may have dealt with some of you while you guys were submitting your budgets. That is the reason being I'm the fiscal liaison for the Office of Employment and Training. I'm also the grant manager for our formula grants. So I'm wearing two hats right now while we try to fill the fiscal liaison position. So that's why I'll be going over today with you our grantee reporting system. So let me share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so we're just going to go right into it here today. So this is meant to be more of a overview of GRS is what it's called. This is the last time you'll hear me call it a grantee reporting system. We just call it GRS. So it's more of an overview. I know you all don't have access to GRS quite yet. However, that's actually what we'll be discussing today, as well as the different screens that you're going to see. And I did ask that this PowerPoint be sent out to you all as a tool for the future whenever you go to report costs or you need to request cash. That way you can refer to this before you ever have to reach out to any of the Department of Commerce employees, just that way you can get an answer quicker. So we'll just go right in here. On the agenda today, we just have general information. Requesting a RACF, we call it, so it's a RACF ID, we call it a RACF ID, and then the different GRS screens that you'll be touching. So just general information here. Welcome to the Illinois Department of Commerce GRS. This is an electronic reporting system consisting of several screens accessible by grantees. It allows for electronic entry of costs, obligations, receipts, disbursements, and cash requests, which we will go over all of them. Some more general information here. This is the address to the Department of Commerce, and that the 500 East Monroe Street is the Ridgely building where most of our grant managers are located. If there were ever a time where you would have to, if you requested cash in an excess amount, I could give you an additional address. Right now, our accounting office is split from our grant management office. But if you ever needed to refund cash from a grant, you could work with myself and we'd go from there to get that taken care of. And then grant manager contact information. So that's going to be on your grant agreement. I know you all haven't actually seen the grant agreement yet, but those are coming at a later date. Okay, so if you do have the PowerPoint available to you, then you should be able to click on that link, as well as I had a Word document also attached to that PowerPoint sent to you. If you have any problems or if you did not receive that information, just go ahead and send me an email after this presentation. I'll be happy to forward that to you. Using this PowerPoint, you should be able to fill the form out. It's not too terribly complicated. So we'll just go right in. So the required items are going to be the application date, the access requested for, phone number, work address, the city, state, and zip, email, applicant signature, and date. So if we're looking at this form right here, you'll see that the application date will be needed to be completed. I did fill in the new ID since all of you minus I believe one grantee will be a new ID that I'm aware of. So you would have to request as if you would never had access. And then you'll fill in, sorry if it's hard to read for you here, but you'll fill in requested for, so the client name, and it's asking that you print that information. And then it'll have the work address, email, the DECIO contact, I pre-filled as Shannon and her phone number that I had. And then I've pre-filled in your comment as to why you need access to GRS. And so the last thing you'll need to do is the signature and the date here. And what I'm actually going to have you all do is since I know Shannon and Kenneth are very busy working to get the backside finished for these grants, I'm going to have you all send that information to me. So once that form is complete and you have a wet signature on that signature block down at the applicant's signature, go ahead and send that form to me, and I will work on sending it to the next person that needs to approve it before we can actually get you guys access. And then I just have a note on here. It says the person assigned to the ID should be the person who will be accessing the system to report expenditures and request cash. So that's probably going to be your fiscal personnel. So that should be the person that's requesting access to our system. Let's see if it'll move on here. Okay. And this is just more general information for password resets. So it's bound to happen that you won't be in the system for more than 30 days for one reason or another, and your password will expire. So it won't allow you to log in. It's actually pretty simple. This email, this org box that's on the screen there, they're really good at replying quickly. So they usually have you in the system within a couple of hours. But if you just send some email stating that this is my RACF ID, which I said you guys will receive at a later date, and I need my password reset, they should be able to help you at that email address. All right, so expenditure reporting requirements. So we'll go right in here. It says expenditures for each month must be entered into GRS by the 20th of the following month. So an example for that is any of our active grants that we have right now have the deadline of November 20th to complete their expenditures for the month of October. So on November 20th, all their costs that they should have had in October should be in our system by the 20th of November. If the 20th falls on a Saturday or Sunday or a holiday, expenditures must be reported the last business day prior to the 20th. All right, and cash requests. So essentially what's going to happen is you guys are going to report your expenditures in the system, and then whatever you report, you're able to request cash for reimbursement. So that you can put in a cash request into GRS at any point, but those are processed by me on Mondays and Thursdays. So that date doesn't mean necessarily as much to you, but what you need to know is that cash requests entered on Wednesdays by 4:30 will be in my queue on Thursday mornings for review. So your deadline to get the cash requests in for Thursdays is Wednesday at 4:30. Then like I said, I review cash requests on Monday as well. You need to have those requests in by 4:30 on Friday of each week. That way they're batched up to my level for approval on time. Holidays occurring on Mondays or Thursdays will delay the cash request processing by at least one day. Typically, it's not a huge deal. There's not as many issues with that being delayed. And then once cash requests are approved by DECIO, approved vouchers are processed to the Illinois Comptroller's Office for payment. The Comptroller's Office makes payments to the grantee via a warrant or electronic funds transfer, or EFT. And to go even further on that, if grantee wishes to receive EFT rather than a paper warrant, the Illinois Comptroller's Office handles requests for EFT payments. And so I actually was used to create this slideshow. I was reviewing old documents that was a few years old, but I went back onto the Comptroller's website, and this is still valid. I figured there might be something online you could complete. However, their website still says they prefer that you call that phone number on there to get your EFT set up. And I do believe there's a large percentage of our grantees choose that option. That way they can receive the money quicker. All right, so we're going to go right into accessing GRS. So that link right there is the link that you'll need to save to enter GRS. And there's a note there. It can only be used in Google Chrome, Edge, or Firefox. It's bound to happen, and I will not fault you for it, but someone will reach out to me and say that it's not working, and it'll be due to them being in Internet Explorer. So just know that I use Edge, and it seems to work just fine, and that's where my screenshots are out of as well. So doesn't seem to be any issues. So whenever you click on that link, it's going to first pop up this screen right here. It's a sign in access to this site. So this is a RACF ID. You'll see it. It's MHD. It's always from my understanding MHD and then 4 numbers. So this one just happens to be mine. It's MHD 7245. And then it'll ask you for a password, which, like I said, you do have to reset, I believe, every 30 days. So after you log in, this will be the first screen that you see. And these are the only screens really that you should ever need with GRS. It is a little touchy. So for example, right here, I would input the grant number. So your guys' grant numbers are going to start with 20, which goes in this box here, and then 63500, and then your number. So 001, 002. And then, so it actually over here, it says F1 as if, hey, I could hit F1 and it's going to take me to cost reporting. However, that's not the case. You're actually going to come over to here, and this is going to be your F1. So the keyboard F1 will not work in the website version of this software. So you'd select PF1, and it would take you to cost reporting. Same thing for all of these screens. The only ones that you will not have to deal with are your SBDC program and income, petition reporting, and you really won't have to select master menu because this is the master menu for a grantee. And so this slide actually just states what I just said, is the navigation buttons on the left-hand side of your screen are the ones that you'll be using to go through GRS, and then those are the 3 screens that you will not be using. Okay, so like I said, you enter your grant number at the top of the screen. The first box is for the first 2 digits of the grant. The second is for the 6 digits. So then you'll click the PF1 button to go onto the expenditure reporting screen. And this is what you're going to see. So when you're reporting costs, this screen right here is exactly what you're going to see. Just to clarify, I did use a grant that is not a Youth Career Pathways grant for my screenshot. So some of it may look a little different, or there's actually numbers input in there right now that you won't have. But these step-by-step over here, I'm not going to go through each step just because I know, like I said, you guys can't follow along in GRS quite yet. So these are really just for you to use in the future when you go to report costs. But what you would do is you'd enter in the expenditure code for your inquiry. So what I'm going to do here is close out of this real quick and show you. All right, so I just actually happen to have Goodwill's budget up. So I'm just going to show you. So what it's asking when it's saying the expenditure code is it's these codes over here. So GRS XP code is expenditure code. And you'll notice, so example, this one has 1,000. That's going to be your admin personnel. 1,005 is your admin fringe benefits. And it actually goes all the way through, all the way to your indirect costs. So that's one way to know what expenditure code you're trying to report on. And I'm going to show you another method here. This one probably is the best bet. So I'm typing in a grant number here. And I want to go to F2, which I will show you guys the screen, but just to show you exactly what you might need for the first screen or cost reporting, this is like a little cheat sheet. So if you look here at the expenditure summary, it's showing the entire budget for this grant. So it's the grant budget, the costs that you've entered and have been certified, and then the expenditure code. So what I recommend is maybe printing this screen. That way you know your expenditure codes that you're looking at and the ones that you need to report costs. And if you select F8, it actually takes you further down for your total grant amount, total certified costs, and your balance. So, like I said, actually, let me go back. I want to show you one more thing. All right, so we're back on the main screen. I have my grant number typed in there. So I'm going to go over to F1. And here we are. It's just like the screenshot that I showed you all. And so we're going to type in 1005 is our expenditure code. All right, so it actually gives you the opportunity to report the previous month costs, which would go here. and your current month costs. Totally up to you. Obviously, like I said, for this, for example, if someone's reporting costs right now on November 4th, they can still do so for October. So they'd be putting information in the previous month category, but they could also be putting in information for the current month that they're receiving bills that they're paying. So let's go back to the PowerPoint here. Okay, so like I said, yeah, you'll report costs for previous month and current month. And just a few notes here for this reporting cost screen is you must enter decimal places and cents when entering expenditures. If you do not, the system will place the decimal point in the entry. So just make sure to actually input decimal places. And then to reduce expenditures or adjust an incorrect entry into the amount followed by a minus sign. So this system is ancient. So it looks very matrixy, and that's one of the quirks about it is so you can't just put the minus sign before and then put the number to have it subtract, or if you made an error, you have to put it after. All right, so this is the expenditure summary screen. So say you're on the 351 screen, which was the reporting screen, and you finished reporting all of your costs. You're going to go over to this screen, expenditure summary, and you're going to see the costs that you just entered are going to be in the uncertified cost column. So it's very important that you confirm that what you input is what you meant to put. And once you've done so, you're selecting F2, so PF02 over here. Once you've confirmed that those are all the costs you wanted to, and you're certifying those costs. And what that does is that tells the system that those costs are good to go, and it'll allow you to request cash on the very next screen for those costs that you've input. So now we're on the 353 screen, and this is the screen to request cash. Hopefully that's large enough for you guys to see. But basically it goes through your cumulative obligation here, any cash that you've already requested, your obligation balance, your certified cost to date, and cash request limit. And then the last thing here is the cash available to request. So it's saying right now in the entire grant, you have $40,849.75 in this example for cash that you could request. I will say that it's important that you don't request cash outside of your certified cost to date, which is 177. So these two numbers here it's telling you that you have certified costs of 177, and then your previous cash you've already reported, or excuse me, you've already received is 136. So you could request potentially the amount of $40,849.75. In this screen here, so this is the 354 screen, and it's your cash request tracking. So if you're curious as to why you have not received a cash request, this is a screen that you'll go to see exactly where it's at. And if you want to select, or excuse me, if you want the warrant information, you can actually select PF01 over here, and that will give you the warrant information. If it doesn't have any information, that means that the comptroller's office hasn't issued a checkout for that. So that's when maybe you could be concerned, like, okay, all right, hey Josh, what's going on? Why is this being delayed at the comptroller's office? There could be a reason, or it could just be a delay on their portion. But either way, you can reach out to us, and I can look into it.
Josh, I'm sorry for the interrupt. A few people are having problems seeing some of the slides because your note slide is also taking up part of the screen. That may be intentional. You may not be able to change it, but that might make it easier for the few people who are struggling to see. Apologies for the interrupt.
No problem. All right, let me stop share, and then I'll come back to here. All right. How does it look now?
That looks good to me. I hope that people in the chat, if it's not working for you, let us know, but better. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I guess I need to be checking this chat. I haven't had it minimized. I didn't even notice it. Okay, so we'll continue on here. So this is the cost ledger summary. And so really the screen is just so you can view where you guys are at with the budget that you had sent to us, how your costs are looking and what your balance is. So if you just follow these steps over here, your grant will pull up and then it'll show all the different expenditure lines that you have, which will, for this grant, are right here. Your budget, the cost, and then any balance that you have left over. Oh, get down. Sorry, I have a cat that likes to try to walk on to the table. Get down. All right, so, and then one of the last screens that you'll see is the 364 screen. And this screen is mainly just so you know essentially when or what you entered a cost for. So if you select your grant and then the view all costs, and then it actually tells you the expenditure code that you entered. It tells you exactly what that is. So for this one, it's personnel program. It says the date you entered it and the amount of the entry. And that's really all I have. I wanted to leave a little bit of time just so you guys, I know I heard you guys might have a lot of questions about this. So I guess at this point, go ahead and put them in the chat, or possibly unmute yourself if that option's available, and I'll try to answer them.
Josh, there are a few further up. So those of you who typed in, if Josh doesn't catch them, please feel free to speak up.
All right, so I'll start here from the first question. I see we don't have a current active RACF ID, although we had one for a grant about 3 years prior. Do we need to send a request for a new ID, or would we just submit a request for a password reset? That's a great question. If you remember your RACF ID, then we could try that route before I have you complete that form. If you don't remember it, then just go ahead and fill out the new user form, and I'll reach out to the org box to see if they're able to do it. So, but just let me know either way if you're able to find it or not, or otherwise we'll just pretend like you're a new user. Okay, a link to the form in the PowerPoint does not work. Okay, Kenneth, do you know if the Word document that I sent this morning was also sent to the grantees?
It looks like it did not. So we'll resend out everything. And when the page is up and running, look at the cat, we will make sure it's posted online for everyone to access as well. So I'll resend out.
All right. So what else do we have? Do we enter in both the expended costs and for the month we are in expenditures to date, or forecasted, or just the previous one? So you would never do forecasted costs. So this is the only cost that you've actually paid. And to also answer your question, for the month we are, you can do the month in the past or the month you're in. So if you would like to, you could, in live time as you're paying a bill, enter the costs into GRS. All right, so for correcting errors, all right, let me actually get out of this PowerPoint real quick, if it'll let me. All right, can everyone see this screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we want to go to cost reporting. Okay, so it's hard to show you since I'm actually using an active grant. I don't want to, mess anything up for Lake County here. But so essentially, if I notice that why is it not? Okay, so it's hard for me to show you, but essentially what I say that I accidentally over-reported costs for my indirect program, which is what this expenditure code is, by $1,000. So like I said, make sure you input the decimal place there. So regularly you would think that you could just put a minus sign there, and that would take it out from what you've reported. However, with the system, you have to put it behind the total, and then that would also actually subtract it from your balance. Okay, let me get back to my chat. So Lisa, in regards to your question, so she asked, what kind of timeline are we looking at to get up and rolling? I'm assuming we are waiting for our final agreements to be received before we can get set up to start submitting payment requests. So you are correct. Essentially, from my understanding, here in the next few days or weeks, you guys will be receiving your grant agreements. And essentially, it'll be asking for your signatures. That's one of the final steps, as far as I'm aware, before the grant manager is able to send them to accounting to obligate your money on your grant. So in regards to a timeline, it's hard to say exactly because there can be a lot of snafus that could occur from now until then, such as the comptroller's office, because the comptroller's office has to approve your grant as well. They could, be holding up the process. It could be, it's hard to say exactly when it could be up and rolling. But technically, as it is right now, so you guys have been awarded the grant, correct? So, and that started, I believe, on 9/1 of 2021. So you could technically be you can be reporting costs right now. So obviously you don't have access to the system and you don't have a grant, so you can't do that. But you can, if you keep track of any costs that you're receiving, you can report them at a later date whenever you do have access to the grant and to GRS, and you should be able to request cash for those. So if you're tracking those properly, once you have access, you should be able to immediately input those into the system and then submitting cash requests. How do we access this session? Okay. Laura, I might have to have you clarify what you mean. Would we only use PF01 for reporting? Okay, so yes, that is correct. So you're just using this screen, the expenditure reporting screen, which is number 351 for reporting. Am I missing anything? Can you confirm? So the grant start date is September 1st, right, of 2021?
Correct. And we recognize that our late processing is causing some barriers for individuals, especially those who maybe can't hire until they have their grant award. So we'll work with you each independently as you bring up questions. That certainly will be a primary topic at our next Wednesday meeting. We're sure. We're ready. We know.
And
that it's causing stress.
I will add, it's not uncommon that this occurs. So for my grants, the formula grants for RIOA, it's a similar thing. Our start on July 1st. I don't typically have the grants to them until August. That's just how it works, unfortunately. They can still report costs, or they can still accrue costs and be reimbursed for them. It's just a delayed process. So. Any other questions? All right, I see one here. Where'd it go? With the initial disbursement from the draft grant agreement, will the initial disbursement from the draft grant agreement be already authorized, or will we need to put any cash request for this disbursement into GRS? So you will have to put in a cash request. So it's essentially that allows you to request up to 25%. However, you still have to have costs reported before I would approve, a advance of 25% of the grant. Okay. Also, since the grant start date is September 1st, would we put any expenditure in our reporting for October? So that is correct. So whenever you all do finally receive the grant and you're going to have access to GRS, you would put it in the previous month as the cost that you're reporting. Even if you had costs on September 2nd, it's going in your previous month's reported costs. Okay, so that's the last question I have. Does anybody else have anything for me? And like I said, I mean, if you guys, my contact information, let me bring that back up on the screen here. If you guys need to contact me, feel free to call or email me. I would prefer email, just that way I can, take my time to get a good response to you. If for example, it's not something I can answer, and I have to ask John Barr or someone else in OET. But if that's it, then I will stop sharing here. And I will hand it over to Tamika.
Before we get started with Tamika, in keeping with our monitoring our break times, if we need to take just a couple of minutes break for everyone to handle their personal business, I see at least one head shaking. Good. Let's take just a couple of minutes while Tamika gets her screen set up and everyone handle your personal business. 5 minutes, we'll be right back on. And we'll be on here if you want to send some chats or communicate with each other while we wait during break time.
Okay, everyone, I think that we are done with our break, and we again thank Josh for his presentation, and now we look forward to hearing from Tamika.
Great, thank you. So I am Tamika Chisholm. I serve as the Fiscal and Programmatic Monitoring Manager for OET. So I'm going to provide a high-level overview of once you receive your grant award, kind of the next steps and the things to think about as you fiscally think about managing your grant award. So there are 3 phases within a grant life cycle. We have the pre-award, award, and post-award. I know that award notices will be going out soon. So this presentation will touch base on some of the post-award requirements. So the post-award phase comprises a significant amount of work over the duration of your award period, which includes implementing the grant, reporting progress, and completing closeout requirements. So as you can see, we do have OET staff that are here to assist and ensure that you and your organization complies with the grant terms and conditions. So once you receive your grant awards, first and foremost, please read the award inside and out. And by that, I mean, read all of the parts. We often see that grantees read like the program description or look at the budget, but it's vitally important that you understand all the terms of your award. So when you do see your grant agreement, your grant award, you will see several requirements and articles throughout that agreement. So please take the time to read all of those. Some of those articles will be required representations, definitions, payment, required certification, allowable cost, of course, your budget, the stance on lobbying, things of that nature. And another important part, after those articles, you're going to see a variety of exhibits that may pertain to your award agreement as well. So outlining the project description, deliverables or milestones, again, how to access payment in cash, vital contact information, any specific conditions that are outlined for your award and performance standards. So some things that you should know. When thinking about fiscally managing your grant program, you should come familiar with the federal guidance and regulation, 2 CFR 200, or you may hear us say uniform guidance. Also become familiar with WIOA federal regulations. And throughout your award notice, you will see WIOA guidance highlighted as well as uniform guidance. Become familiar with fiscal concepts. You'll hear when talking about uniform guidance and we're talking about costs, you'll always hear us reference reasonable, allowable, and allocable. Internal controls. And internal controls involves ensuring that you have maintained like separation of duties among staff, and you have control over assets and grant funds. They may also include checks and balances that is necessary to safeguard funds from your grant award, and also including some strong monitoring and risk assessment that is a part of your internal controls. Cash management, Josh reviewed the process of requesting cash, but I did want to mention that when you are requesting cash, grantees should be mindful to not have an excess of cash over 3 days. So truly request only the cash that's needed to cover your expenditures and obligations. And maintaining records. Maintaining records ensures that source documentation, supports revenue and expenditures, and it's an important element to a strong fiscal system. So even documenting any in-kind, if you have approved in-kind that was noted on your approved budget, that needs to be well documented as well. And then take a look at your organization's fiscal policies and procedures. Have you updated your policies and procedures to ensure that they are reviewed regularly, that they are widely used and distributed throughout the organization? And things on your policies and procedures could be your procurement process, your disbursement of invoices and expenditures, things of that nature. So take the time to review these concepts, and also really take the time to review your fiscal policies and procedures as you are managing your grant award. So we talked about the allowable costs. So Uniform Guidance 200.403 is the requirements that we recognize when looking at our costs and what's allowable. So you do have your uniform grant budget that you've built out, and there are definitions of each of the budgeted line items. But when you're thinking about your costs and you're thinking about, is this cost allowable? Also thinking about, is this cost reasonable for the performance of the award? Can it be allocated to the award? Is it consistent with policies and procedures? And is it adequately documented? When thinking about the reasonable costs, you can also look at 2 CFR 200.404 for the uniform guidance regulations, but also internally, when thinking about, is this cost reasonable? Thinking about it in terms of, is it generally recognized as ordinary and necessary? Does the cost exemplify sound business practices and arm's length bargaining? Does the cost doesn't significantly deviate from the established practice of your organization? So all costs that are incurred with your grant program should also be allocable, which you can find that uniform guidance at 200.405. But a cost that's allocable is, number one, it's allowable. Again, it's necessary to the grant award and the overall operation of the organization. It benefits the award and can be reasonably proportioned throughout different grant programs. So if it's a shared cost, that you are able to allocate that cost, a percentage of that cost reasonably throughout each program associated with that shared cost. An important fiscal function of managing your grant awards is budget management. Your budget is a numerical representation of your grant program goals and objectives, and serve as a guide or measure of acceptable financial performance. So again, review your approved line items and your budgeted totals. Review the description of each line item. So as you are expensing off your grant award and you're looking at your budgeted amounts and you're looking at the description of each line item, ensure that you have internal controls and processes in place, that those expenses are being allocated to the appropriate line item within your financial system that you're using to manage your budget, to manage your budgeting reports, things of that nature. Some financial controls that you should think about are your accounts receivable, notating how cash is being reported coming in, your process for disbursements, again, that cash management process and procedures, payroll and appropriately allocating payroll expense, not only to the program, but if that person is responsible or has involvement in other programs, that expense is allocated properly along with fringe benefits. That there are some segregation of duties. You do try not to have the same person doing the same job. So if you are dispensing vouchers, not having the same person look at the voucher, create the expense in the financial system, cut the check, that there are some checks and balances in place. And again, that we're reviewing our internal policies and procedures. Some common questions that we often get from grantees that relates to uniform guidance is record retention. How long do I have to keep the supporting documentations and all the records for my grant program? So in CFR 200.334, financial records and all supporting documents pertinent to the federal award should be retained for a period of 3 years, and that's from the date of submission of the final expenditure report. And then we also usually get a lot of questions for equipment versus supplies. So if you do have any approved line items for equipment, even though you have that approved on your budget, if you are expensing a voucher for an expenditure that's $5,000 or more, you still need to get approval from the department to execute that transaction. But if it's a supply and that's an item that is less than $5,000 in cost, regardless of its useful life, those items can be purchased regularly as part of your disbursement system that you have set up within your organization. So we do have reporting procedures. So grantees are required to submit support reports to DCO as outlined in your deliverable schedule in your grant agreement. So this includes progress reports listed above. So you have your periodic performance report, and then you're also going to have your periodic financial report. So these reports submitted are monitored to kind of monitor progress toward the grant as defined in your goals, and also to ensure diligence in grant fiscal management and record keeping. So OET staff monitors your progress and expenditures through various programmatic and financial reporting procedures, as well as using performance metrics per your grant agreements. While the majority of the award recipients carry out grants ethically and efficiently, these monitoring procedures are necessary to maintain transparency and prevent fraud and abuse. So each grant award is typically assigned a grant manager that monitors both the fiscal and programmatic for each grant. So as you're submitting your periodic performance reports and financial reports, we do have staff in-house that are reviewing and certifying those reports. And I do have an example of the financial report on the next slide. So in the periodic financial report, it does come with a set of instructions, but I kind of wanted you to see the items that you will be filling out. So you have all of your grantee information, indirect cost rate. You'll identify the period of the report. You will have your approved budget, and then you will report on your current expenses for that period, direct expenses, and your current indirect cost as well. And this report is submitted with backup documentation, such as your trial balance and information that is needed to verify that what is submitted on your financial reports is accurate, and that is what is being reported out on your financial system in-house. So as I mentioned, I am the monitoring manager. So as a grantee of a grant award, you will be monitored at least one time during your grant period. So how the process works is typically within 30 days out of the scheduled monitoring event, we will send out an announcement letter. The announcement letter will contain the grant number award and the grant name that is being monitored. We will have a list of documentation that will be needed for the monitoring. On the programmatic side, it may contain a participant list, so we can get a list of participants that are associated with your grant award, and monitor the activities on the program side associated with the grants. The fiscal items that we do review is the organization's audit, disbursements. So we will have a disbursement sample, which will contain, the voucher, the invoice information, and a copy of the check to certify and verify that all information is accurate. We do review payroll to ensure that all of the personnel outlined in your payroll is those compensation and wages are being allocated appropriately as stated on your approved budget. We do look at policies and procedures, and that is to allow us to kind of get a good idea on how your internal controls and how your processes functions, and we do monitor to see that those policies and procedures are being followed. We do look at bank reconciliation, and that allows us, as I talked about earlier, notating that cash on hand. So giving us that visual view of cash that was requested, the disbursements that went out, and identify the daily cash on hand. And some of the supporting documentation that's utilized will be your trial balance. It will be reports from your general ledger to verify and oversee that information. So again, your policies and procedures are a very important process of managing your grant. It really drives all the functions that are related to the fiscal transactions of your grant awards. And we do rely on that when going through our monitoring process as well. So these are some of the resources that you can continue to utilize when looking at your grant and managing grants. Definitely looking at uniform guidance, becoming very familiar with the GATA portal. If you haven't done that already, those do play an important role in the total grant process. So John Barr and myself, if you have specific questions that's related to your organization, as you start to incur costs, as you start to look at your expenditures, if you have questions on what's allowable, what's not allowable, things of that nature, you can contact John Barr and myself. And I know that you'll probably have more questions once you see your grant award, once you're incurring costs, once you're starting to document those costs and really get into the nitty-gritty of your expenditures and start having some disbursements and some true financial transactions related to the grant. So if needed, John Barr and myself are available to answer those questions for you. So I kind of just wanted to give a high-level overview of some of those fiscal functions but wanted to kind of take the time out to, if there's any specific questions that you have right now, as you look at your budgets, as you're looking at your expenditures, that we can answer some of those questions.
Give just a few minutes here. You can type in the chat or feel free to unmute and ask Tamika, and Josh is still with us. And I know you may have more questions once the grant agreements go out, obviously. Thank you. Yes, thanks for confirming with that, Tamika.
And I see that Josh has answered the questions about the quarterly PFR and PPR reports.
Okay, that might be it for now for our fiscal team.
I do have one thing to add. This is Josh. Tamika, do you have a template of the PFR and the PPR that you could send out to the grantees? I didn't know if you had a template or not.
Yes, I have a blank template that I can send out.
Perfect. Yeah, I think one of them asked for it, and as well as the instructions. And I have the instructions if you don't have
I
one.
have instructions. Yes, I can send those out.
Perfect. If there are no other additional right now questions for Josh and Tamika, we want to thank them and make sure you all have contacts with them. You can always go also through Shannon and myself to get to Josh and to get to them if you need to at any point. So we're going to do a few more business wrap-ups here before we end for the day. But Josh and Tamika, thank you so much. Oh, there we have one more question from the chat box. Does the template build monthly? Oh, good question.
Do you want me to answer, Tamika?
Yes, is it cumulative?
So
Sure.
it is not cumulative. However, with the PFR, let me see if I can actually show you all an example of one.
Perfect. Yeah.
So a lot of times you can actually, sorry, let me find one before I keep talking, just to make sure.
I can pull it up too.
Okay, share screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the template. This is all, excuse me, this is all just helping you complete the form. This is where the meat and potatoes of the thing is. So you'll notice how it's not actually completed down here for your current budget. You'll actually be able to input CGRS. And then that's really for this form. After this top grantee information can really, it's cookie cutter, so it can be left in there minus the prepared dates, the report periods. So you have to change a few things in here, but then if you just put input CGRS, then that's all you'd have to do for this form, as well as submit your supporting documentation, which I'll just go through this one here, but it's your trial balance for your PFR, which are screenshots from GRS. So that's just to help it. The form's not terribly complicated. Is I guess what I'm trying to get at. So I see a question from Sarah. When will the first reports be due? That I'm not entirely sure on. I don't know if Kenneth, if you're I know, so if your guys' report, if your grant started on 9/1, our system probably already believes that you have a report due, but obviously that's not going to be the case since you all don't even have access to your grant yet. So I'll have to get back to you on that one. And Jennifer, that is correct.
We're leaving it open for a few more minutes here for any additional questions, especially for Josh and the how-tos.
And I'll share one more thing with you all, just since I have it here. So this is the system that we use essentially to generate all this information and all the grant agreements and whatnot. It's called eGrants. You'll never have to see this again, but I'm just showing you the grant report deliverable schedule, which will be sent out to you, like I said, whenever you receive your grant agreement in the coming days or weeks. So this right here says period covered. So that's just the first PFR that was due. It's due date of November 1st of 2021. Obviously, that's not going to happen. You guys haven't missed a deadline or anything like that. I've never experienced, I don't know what the path forward is for this due date. They'll probably end up, inputting something, and your next one would be due on January 31st would be your first PFR and your first PPR. Like I said, we'll know more information, but just know that you have not missed a deadline because your first ones were due on November 1st.
Good question from Laura.
So the PFR and PPR reports will be sent through email to your grant manager.
Okay, we may be able to wrap up with, oh, one more, good. I knew you'd have more. We sit tight for a minute.
Okay, the PFR and PPR reports will be cumulative when we start, so we do not have to create a report for each month. No, so you would not have to do a report for each month.
Good. Okay, I think that may be the last one, going once, going twice. So we want to thank Josh and Tamika both. I know that this is, especially for new grantees, this is a lot to take in, and we'll be working with this in more detail in our upcoming Wednesday meetings. Oh, one more. Eric's. Eric, you could unmute yourself if you'd rather, instead of typing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to run back to my desk to type the question in, but I ran out of time. On the PFR, since the expenditures are being entered in on the GRS, do we just check off that the expenditures are being reported in that separate system, or do you still want us to go ahead and complete the line items in the PFR?
So I'm not, I believe, I think that, did you see the portion where it said CGRS on that form?
Yes.
So yeah, so you could just put that information and then and you wouldn't have to worry about completing that each time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so essentially we just check that box off saying I was like, I try to remember what it said, like 14 to 22 are in a separate system or something like that. Yeah, so we would just check that box off. We don't actually have to put in the line item expenditures. It just refers to the GRS.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. If there's no other questions, I think we can call it.
Okay. So Josh, Tamika, thank you. And again, grantees, I know you'll all be in touch with them in the upcoming weeks. And we're going to move on to our next section of today, which is kind of wrap up and next steps. Let me see if I can actually share my screen. If anyone needs to take a couple of minutes break, please don't hesitate to say so. Otherwise, we might be able to just power through and hopefully let everyone, I know you're all busy, let us all move on to the next phase of your day. Shannon, while I see if I can share my screen, any steps or things you'd like to share with everyone?
No, just if something comes up between now and when we talk to you again on Wednesday, just feel free to email us and we'll try to incorporate it into Wednesday or get back with you if it's a individual thing. So just continue to communicate whatever you need from us.
Here are some of the things we want to make sure we're all on the same page with. Obviously, we know the number one concern for everyone is getting your grant agreements, and the systems are all talking to each other. We're all working to try to get those out to you as soon as possible. I will be, Shannon, or I will be emailing out to you updated contact lists for each agency. I know there've been a lot of staff changes. You have some staffing that haven't come on board yet. So we'll be sending out the updated lists based on our previous contact lists and the Illinois WorkNet logins that you had. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. The next thing we're also going to do is in preparation for our Wednesday meetings, because again, we're firm believers and we don't want to meet just for the sake of meeting. We want to meet so that you all know that you can come to each other to get best practices, share what you're doing, get the tools you need to continue to succeed. So we'll be sending out probably in the form of a Survey Monkey these couple of questions. Two of them I'm going to put up right now. And if you're comfortable typing into the chat your answers to these questions, and you don't have to rate a scale of 1 to 5, but tell us what things you want to see as soon as possible, like ideally at our next Wednesday meeting. Shannon and I think we know what those things will be, but we don't want to speak for you. So if you're comfortable typing in the chat what topics you want sooner rather than later to make sure you're all on board and ready to get rolling. I'll give you just a minute to do that. I see a message from Stacia. We'll be sending out the invites, but the latest draft based on feedback that we're compiling from you from these few days, it looks like we'll be doing the TA sessions on Wednesdays at 10, Shannon. Am I looking at my calendar correctly?
Yeah, full group TAs will always be 10 to 11, and then one-on-ones would just be on Wednesdays from 10-minute spots, basically.
There you go.
Yeah, we will be always sending you out the information beforehand.
Timelines, WorkNet. Yep, WorkNet is the thing that we assumed everyone would want next week. And again, a lot of that unfortunately is based on making sure that the system is built specifically for our YCP grant needs. That goes along with the timelines. And I hope you heard Josh. I mean, hopefully that's alleviating some of the concern. I know that especially old grantees, you know that quarterly reports should be due any minute. And there may be some anxiety about that. We know very well where you are with the process, that you're waiting for your grant agreements. Let me give just a minute more if anyone wants to type WorkNet. Okay, good. Shannon and I are not slow. We know that that's the biggest issue. one more. Yes. We will also, on the Survey Monkey, be asking for your feedback on this next question. And that is, oh, wait, let me go back up to that. On a secondary question is service deliverables, like what things like trauma-informed care, enrollment, engagement, outreach, those kind of things, what you want training on from us and or other professionals or from yourselves. So that'll be included in the Survey Monkey. But first we wanted to know what you need for next week, which is about getting your programs rolling. And lastly, if you're comfortable, I know you all don't know each other very well yet, but again, this is a safe space where you all can support each other. We're trying to get a handle on where everyone is right now. Without your grant agreements and without Illinois WorkNet, we recognize you are just doing things on paper or keeping things together. But where are you right now with your participants and your program? Do you have people that you're already serving? You're just waiting for us to say, here you go, enter it. Are you kind of just starting off? Or are you really like now thinking, okay, we're ready to get rolling. We haven't done anything yet. We might need some guidance. So kind of just give us an idea if you're, again, if you're comfortable in the chat sharing that. So we have a sense on if someone needs some special one-on-ones, or if you're all on the ground running and just need a way to be able to report it. Hoping you can still see my screen, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Dennis, this is Sarah Chapman.
Hi.
Hi, just real quick. So I was thinking Josh mentioned that the first quarterly report would not be due until January. Did
That's
I
our
hear that
plan.
right? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
you heard that's what he said. Our plan is hopefully, again, because of the late rollout for you, and this has happened, I'm thinking some of you have received state grants before. I know it's happened. One time I had a federal grant where I didn't receive the grant award until 9 months into the grant. So that happens, unfortunately. We're just trying to figure out the process of if we'll have some minimal information that you can enter and when that date will be. So
Yeah.
again, unfortunately, to hurry up and wait.
That's fine. Oh, no, I totally understand entering information now, but as far as a report, I wasn't sure if I heard conflicting dates like November and then January. So I was hoping for
Yeah.
the January. I feel like we'd have more to report at that time.
We all obviously think that too. The system may require us to have something entered for that first quarter, even if it may be obviously minimal numbers. So as soon as we have that, I know that you want to know sooner rather than later. We'll let
Okay.
you know.
Okay, great. And then one last question. I know it's going to be really challenging to accommodate all of us, but I didn't know if there would be any way that Wednesday standing meeting could possibly be at a different time. Not to be selfish, but I have a leadership team meeting with the school every Wednesday at 10, of course, at the exact same time, right? So I didn't know if that was up for any negotiation, like if it could be 9, if it could be
It sure
11.
can be. Yes.
I just would have a
Shannon
hard
and I-
time attending.
Got you. Shannon and I had thought about that and had concerns about that. So we can incorporate into the Survey Monkey that we send out a backup time. And if you're an agency or an individual who has an issue with the Wednesdays at 10, please don't let us drop the ball on that. Send us a message and remind us, like, could you be free at 11 or could you be free at noon? So we've
Okay.
got a couple backup
So
times.
just put that information in the survey that you'll send out.
Yes, and if I leave it off of the survey, because heaven knows I may forget, don't hesitate, send Shannon and I an email.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you're not the only one that might have a barrier, so we want to make sure we do what we can to get everyone involved. Okay, I see a lot of the info coming in through the chat. Thank you. Shannon, I want to toss it back over to you and open it up for everybody else. Anything we want to share, things that you need, and where we go from here. This can be a great project. We're excited, and you guys have such diverse programming and such a great background skill sets that this is going to be really great. PFR reports. Okay, that's old. Shannon, I'm sorry, I'm talking out loud to myself. Let me hand it to you.
Yeah, I'm just jotting down the concerns, and we'll be tackling these. And like we said, in our ongoing TA sessions, that will hopefully be catered to your real-time needs.
Absolutely. Any last words from anybody else on the meeting here? Because you know, as soon as I say we're done, someone's going to send me a message, so. Excellent. Okay, we're reading the chats.
Yeah, so just if you guys come up with anything again before Wednesday, just reach out to us.
Okay, with that, I think we can wrap it up. And I want to say again, speaking for everybody at DCEO, welcome aboard. We're going to get this rolling for you, and congratulations.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.